Hello. Today I will be talking about the Grishaverse, written by Nickolai Duology. The Grishaverse is a very complex world, and it is one that many fantasy authors should aspire to write like. This series universe goes from pretty basic to very complex. So today I will be discussing the nuances of the Grisha Trilogy, the Six of Crows Duology, the Language of Thorns Anthology, and the Nickolai Duology, which only has one book out right now, but who cares? The Grisha Trilogy. This series starts with Alina, an orphan, who lives in an orphanage. She is tested as a Grisha, who are these people who can control magic. In a way, they can control the elements. I'll go into the magic system later. And she is not chosen to become a Grisha when she is tested at a young age. But then, as she goes on a mission into the mysterious Shadowfold, which is a dangerous part down the split of the middle of her country, she finds that she does have one of these magical powers, and so she's whisked away to the little palace, which is where the Grisha live and train, and she becomes enveloped in this world, and she finds out that she's the chosen one, and there's all sorts of drama, boy drama, if you know what I mean. So, if you get that blurb, you see that it's a pretty basic outline. There's not really a lot of plot development that's original. You see the same themes echoed across a lot of fantasy books, a lot of YA fiction. You know, there's a girl. She's normal. She's boring. Her best friend is like, I don't know, hot, and it's great. And then she finds out she has some sort of power, or she takes place in a competition, and she's whisked away, and she has to join this new world, and there's lots of betrayal and magic and competition, and you see what I'm saying, right? Alina is one of those basic YA protagonists. She's just kind of boring. And her best friend, Mal, is also boring. And the villain, I have a soft spot for him. But overall, as a villain, he's kind of a cliche villain. So then we finish the Grisha Trilogy, and we go into the next section of the Grishaverse, the Six of Crows Duology. This is probably the most popular of Nickolai Duology's creations. People who don't love YA love this series. So basically, there are 6 dangerous outcasts. Yeah, right, these guys are not dangerous. Okay, Kaz is dangerous, Inej is dangerous. The rest of them, though, I'm sorry, but like, not really. Maybe Matthias, but like, anyway. So, Kaz Brecker lives in the Barrow, which is like the dangerous part of town. There's, you know, clubs and prostitution houses, for the nice way to say that. And there's a lot of thievery, murder, stuff going around in that neighborhood. So he is one of these people who does that kind of work, and so he's like a anti-hero of a sort. He recruits this team. Most fans call them the Dregs or the Crows, and they have to go on this heist to break into the ice court, and they're going to get paid a lot of money. Unfortunately, stuff happens, and so the series continues. Fortunately for us, the readers, unfortunately for the characters, because they just wanted their moolah. But anyway, Six of Crows goes directly against everything that the Grisha Trilogy is about. So in the Grisha Trilogy, we have the chosen one stereotype. We have the love triangle, or almost a love square, if I might say. Here we have very clear set relationship goals, less toxic relationships. I will say all of the relationships in the Grisha Trilogy have a level of toxicity to them. The Six of Crows Duology is very much against that. There is no hero, there's just a group of people. Nobody's perfect. It's very much a character-driven novel compared to the Grisha Trilogy, which is a very plot-driven series. And so that, I think, is why a lot more people like this series. Next, The Language of Thorns is a book of short stories, stories that young children of the Grishaverse might get told. And there are very beautiful illustrations in this book. I don't want to go to any full-page illustrations for fear of ruining the story, but you can see that these side illustrations, they build as the story goes on, and finally as the story ends, there is a full-page picture, which kind of spoils for the whole story, so I'm not going to show that right now. But there are, I think, 5 in here? Let me see. Yes, there are 5 stories. And my personal favorite is When Water Sang Fire. There's a lot of theories in that story that connect to the villain in this series. People think that the main character of this short story, which is a legend told to children, but maybe based off of a true story, because that's how many legends and tales begin, may have some sort of family connection to the villain in the Grisha Trilogy. I personally support and love that theory. Next we have King of Scars. As you can see by the bookmark in here, I'm currently reading it. I'm about this far through, so I'm maybe 2/3 of the way there, 3/4, somewhere between there. This is definitely the most complex out of all the books that have been written, in my opinion, in the Grishaverse. It follows Nickolai, who is the king of Ravka, which is where the Grisha Trilogy takes place. He was one of the main characters-ish in the Grisha Trilogy, and it kind of goes on to see what the legacy of the villain in this series has gone on to leave inside him and what is important to the country. It's very political, but it's also very personal, and it's very good. So now, what order should you read the books in? I personally think that you should read them in the order that they were written. It is also the order chronologically of the story, so that is first the Grisha Trilogy, the Six of Crows Duology, then King of Scars. It doesn't matter where you read Language of Thorns, but definitely read the Grisha Trilogy, then Six of Crows, then the Nickolai Duology. That is because there are a lot of spoilers revealed. The world gets more complex, so it's easier if you start with the basic. Also, if you start with the Grisha Trilogy, you're starting out with Ravka, which is a Russian-based country, fantasy world, and then you spread out in Six of Crows to get a much wider scope of the Grishaverse, the Grisha universe, and then you come back to Ravka with King of Scars. Now we're going to talk about the actual world. This is the map for Shadow and Bone, the first book in the Grisha Trilogy. It's focused on Ravka. You have Alsalta, the capital, over in the east side, and then you have the Unsea. The Unsea is the Shadowfold, the place where there is no light, nothing grows there. It's like the hellscape. I think it's actually called that at one point. It is kind of what the main character Alina is set out to destroy. In Siege and Storm, the map widens out into kind of a scope of more of the Grishaverse. You have Shuhan, which I'm kind of thinking is like Chinese-based, and Fjerda. I have no idea what this is based off of, but everybody there is like, it's icy, it's cold, blonde hair, blue eyes, stocky build, toxic masculinity, patriarchal, all that stuff. Novi Zem is kind of like Africa, and the Wandering Isle is kind of like Ireland. And then Kerch, of course, how could I forget about Kerch? That's where Six of Crows takes place. And that is, I actually have no idea what that's based off of, but it's very capitalist. So you have the same map in Ruin and Rising, and I think that Lee Bardugo spread out the map in the second book to give the reader a wider feel of what is going on. In the Six of Crows duology, the map is more detailed, but you can see one thing. There is no Unsea. It's just kind of a basic outline. The world has spread out a lot. And I'm going to say, this is not a spoiler because you know that the good guy always wins, okay? You know that the Shadowfold was going to be disappearing at some point. That's what it looks like. If you do consider this a spoiler, I'm going to set up a spoiler thing now so that when I show you the map for King of Scars, you won't think even more of a spoiler. Finally, the map for King of Scars is the most complex out of them. You can see there's a lot more vegetation, smaller details. The contrast is a lot different. You can see by this that Novi Zem is a very agricultural place. So Novi Zem isn't exactly like Africa, but the demographic is, I guess. I don't know. And so it's very agricultural, as you can see by here. Fjerda, you see the imagery of the trees. The trees of Geo. I think that's how you pronounce their god's name. Asalta has a much more detailed look. The Unsea is back. At the beginning of the series, there is no Unsea. It is just still a ungrowable landscape where nothing works. But it's not dark anymore, so there's that. I thought when the map for this was released that the Unsea was actually back, and I was like, oh, but it's not, sadly. Sadly for the readers, happily for the characters. So now we're gonna move on to the magic system. I'm actually going to get Shadow and Bone back out so I can get a basic guide. I cannot pronounce these names very well, so please bear with me. The Grisha, the magic people, they do not actually call it magic. Magic in their world is called Murzost, which also means abomination, because magic is thought of as bad. Creating is not something that the Grisha should be able to control. Manipulation of what is already there is how this system works. So at the top, you have the Corporalki. They are the order of the living and the dead, and they consist of heartrenders, who are more of the soldiers. They can, shrivel your heart, make it go faster or slower, and healers, who are healers. Then you have the Etheralki, the order of summoners, who are the Squallers, who control wind, Inferni, who control fire, and Tidemakers, who control water. And finally, at the bottom, you have Materialki, the order of fabricators, who are the Durasts and Alchemy. The Durasts are the one who control hard substances, I think. Don't quote me. Alchemy, they create more liquidy solutions with like explosions, things like that. So that is how the magic system works. It's pretty easy to understand, but it gets more complex as more elements get introduced. It's also hard to remember the names sometimes, which is very helpful why there's a system listing in the very beginning of the book. Thank you, Lee Bardugo. I will say that this is definitely one of the most interesting fantasy systems that I've encountered, because even though it is simple, the explanation of Murzost, magic, abomination, the saints in King of Scars, the saints get a whole new imagining. Ravka builds itself on saints. Fjerda has its own religious system. Ravka has its own. Kirch is very atheist. I'm pretty sure they rely on capitalism, and we make our own destiny. And King of Scars goes more deeply into the system of the saints, their importance, where they went, and a lot of characters from the previous novels are in it and make cameos. It definitely helps to start with the series, then go to here, and then here, because they all build on each other. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to have more chats on fantasy series in the future, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe, and watch out for new videos. Thank you, and have a great day.